This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Well, welcome, Tom. Thanks for coming to spend some time with us today. What I thought I'd do first is go over a few logistics with you on how we'll be conducting the interviews today. So prior to you showing up, we picked numbers, the commissioners picked numbers, and that determines the order of the questions that we're going to ask today. So each commissioner will have 5 minutes. That 5 minutes includes their question and your answer. So when the 5-minute time frame is up, Renee will let us know, and then we'll move to the next commissioner for their question. This will allow for 2 sets of 2 questions for each commissioner, and then about 5 minutes at the end for you to ask any questions of us.
Okay.
So without further ado, I will go to Commissioner Walk, who has chosen number 1 today. It's all you.
Yes. Well, hello, Tom. In your resume, you said that you're a former volunteer calculus teacher at an inner city high school in Los Angeles, and also you're a former assistant scout master and Eagle Scout and a Boy Scout in America. Please tell us a little bit more about your motivation to contribute in these volunteer activities, which helps other people.
Well, I've always believed in giving back, and certainly been the recipient of a lot of generous time from other people throughout my life, and so I, believe, what do they call it, pay it forward. So I believe in, doing what I can to help other people. As far as the calculus goes, I happen to be an engineer, and so I was, good at math, and I'll keep this short. Anyway, a friend of mine started a charter high school, and they weren't gonna, they didn't have a lot of money or anything, so I told her I would teach class, as a volunteer. So I taught chemistry 1 year, and then I taught calculus to the same students. It was, I don't know if you've seen that movie Stand and Deliver.
Yeah.
I was trying to, replicate Stand and Deliver, and let's call it a partial success,
Okay. Thank you. Now, your resume, you started a few companies, some like of a technical nature. You have several different roles within the companies you form. So can you explain how your business knowledge, experience, and capabilities would provide a benefit to the township, specifically if you're in a commissioner role?
Well, I think the most important, aspect of starting a company or running a company is to keep track of the money and be extremely conservative with spending. And people are always coming to you with expenses they want. We need $5,000 for this piece of equipment. We need another $20,000 for this marketing campaign, or so on and so forth. And you just can't afford it all. So you have to be judicious and constantly rack and stack what is the most important thing, for the short-term and the long-term benefit. So I think that's exactly the same way the township should be run. Everything has to be racked and stacked, and and go through the same kind of evaluation process. And oftentimes you just have to say no. And I always smile when I say no. Put a little velvet on the hammer, but you just have to say no, because we just can't afford everything.
What's that term, rack and stack mean?
Oh, in other words, to to set some kind of criteria, like a spreadsheet, and then evaluate everything, and then sort it based on score, like what comes in the highest score.
Like a prioritization.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You also said, in general, you would help to provide complete, transparent government. And you mentioned some things, but I'd like you to be able to speak about what are some of the things that you would advocate and recommend.
Well, I think the transparency goes for all the decisions that the board makes, except for things that are protected because of legal, privilege, or I guess, HR matters in some cases fall in that category. But everything else should be out in the open. And I think it extends beyond, the basic stuff of deliberations for various decisions, but also the process of filling vacancies for any particular board or committee, and it also extends to other things. The transparency from the township staff. I think that ordinance that was passed in the last year about restricting access to the commissioners to directly communicate with the staff. I think that was a major mistake, and that just served no purpose other than to obfuscate what's happening. And I think it goes further also in that some of the outside contractors that we have, for example, the solicitor and the engineering firm in particular, you know, I think they have inherent conflicts of interest by virtue of being local businesses. And, you know, in general, most of the decisions that are contentious relate to land development. And both of those individuals or firms, their primary business is working with developers. So I think there's an inherent conflict of interest. So I would like to explore finding replacements for those positions that from people who are non-local and hence don't have that inherent conflict of interest.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kelly?
Thank you. Tom, thank you for your letter of interest and resume. Appreciate you spending the time today to speak with us. First of all, I did notice in your resume that you were a veteran of Operation Desert Storm and served in the Air Force for 7 years. So I want to thank you for your service to our country. My first question would be, we're filling a term which will be short, 7 months. So it'll be from now to the end of the year, basically. Given that time span, is there anything in particular that you would focus on or hope to accomplish in that period of time?
Well, several of the things that I mentioned in response to Commissioner Wolf's questions, I think would fall in that category. In fact, I submitted a record request for a right to know request for the contracts for Zader and for Pidcock a few days ago, and I did not receive a response to that. So I don't know exactly what their contractual terms are, but I would like to explore opening those up for new consideration, and also repealing that ordinance that I referenced earlier. Those would be, I think, the three biggest things, other than dealing with, I'm sure there's going to be an onslaught of development requests to try to jam in before whatever new commissioner set takes over after the election. So that would be another component.
Thank you. Switching over to more of a financial question. So South Whitehall is about to receive this year and next year a combination of nearly $2 million in COVID grant relief money. So let's assume for a moment that we don't know the earmark. So if that's something that came before you and we need to make a decision as a board, where would we spend that money? Is there anything that comes to mind that you would recommend for the township to invest that money in?
Well, I think that, you know, everybody's had to sort of put their life on hold for the last year because of this pandemic. And so if we're getting money that's supposed to be relief for the pandemic, I would put it to use to finance things that benefit the public at large. Enhanced recreational and sports programs and things that allow people to get together and socialize. And then also, I mean, if there are businesses that were hard hit because of the unique aspects of this pandemic, then I think diverting some of the money to help them out would be appropriate. And the process that you used for the first set of grants, you running it through the chamber, I thought that worked well. So that would be another option.
Thank you. And also, piggybacking off Commissioner Wolf, obviously you've got some business startups that you have done, marketing, product development. From a business perspective, do you have any recommendations for us as a township for ways that we could encourage our businesses, just in general, not COVID, but just in general, to help attract and keep our businesses flourishing?
Well, I think, most of the businesses in this area, they're not doing anything that's just unique to this township. If we have ways that we can help them to promote their services beyond the township, I think that would be helpful. I don't believe that South Whitehall should turn into the next Silicon Valley or something. I don't see any particular upside in us attracting some kind of new workforce or building, 10 10-story office buildings or things like that. If it happens, if there's land available and people want to take that investment risk, then, you know, certainly we can consider it, but I don't see that as a priority to attract.
Very good. Renee, how am I on time?
You have 25 seconds.
Oh, good work. I'm on time.
All right, Tom, again, thank you for being here today. I'll start out with a question. What do you understand as the role of a commissioner?
Well, you know, we have a representative form of government in this country, and so the role of a commissioner is to represent the residents, you know, all the constituents of the township. That's, you know, in a nutshell, the job description.
Okay, all right. And then understanding the amount of, or maybe not understanding, maybe not knowing, how do you see yourself balancing your life? You sound like you're a very busy gentleman. How do you see yourself being able to balance your work and your time with the requirements and the needs of being a commissioner?
Well, I work from home, and since I, you know, manage my own company, I have a pretty much a very flexible schedule, so I don't see there be any, you know, inherent conflict of being able to devote the appropriate amount of time.
Okay. And if you had to tell me in a few words, what do you see as the most wonderful quality of South Whitehall Township?
Well, it's that it has a small town feel and a strong sense of community.
All right, thank you. Good, Joe?
Thank you for coming today, Tom. Appreciate your desire to serve the township. In your letter, you mentioned again, and you mentioned that you would repeal immediately the ordinance that prevents the communications between the commissioners' staff. So my question to you would be, being that that would be the case, you would staff and would actually have 5 bosses, 5 commissioners plus the manager. How would you be able to coordinate with staff, communications, messages, things to do, etc.?
Well, I think, to my knowledge, that ordinance and what my intent is there is regarding information gathering, not providing any kind of managerial direction. You know, I think all the managerial direction has to flow through the chain of command. You know, which would be the board, and then the township manager, and then whatever appropriate.
But that's what I think
Agency,
that
you
ordinance
know,
was.
so, well, I thought the ordinance related to not being able to gather information directly as well.
The gathering of information has to go through management, which coordinates everything.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. I think there should be direct access. You know, if you look at any company, the board of directors is, by their job description, is they have access to all the information in that company, carte blanche. And I think the same thing should be in place for the township.
I personally think otherwise. I think that complicates and does not provide coherence with everybody.
Well,
But that's-
it provides a level of non-transparency, which I think is a problem already for this particular board of commissioners.
Okay. And one other question I might have is in terms of open space and development, and how do you feel about in general development and the rights of the owners to develop their land?
Well, I think that there's a balance, that the people have a right to develop, and they also have the people who live in the community and have to endure the consequences of that development also have rights. So that has to be balanced. So, for example, putting some, you know, trying to turn South Whitehall Township into Irvine, California, I think it infringes on the rights of the residents, because they would have to endure the kind of traffic to get in Irvine, California. And we don't have the infrastructure. We have, most of the major roads in this township are one lane in each direction. Irvine was planned, it was a giant orange grove, and so they planned it ahead of time with roads that are 4 or 5 lanes in each direction. That's not possible here, so we have to, at some point, draw the line. And also, I think related to that, you know, there's this doctrine, I think it's called fair use, where, you know, we have to provide for different densities of development, but at some point then it's considered that we have adequately addressed those particular needs, and we don't have to do that anymore. And so I think we've reached that saturation point now, and we need to start taking a hard line against excessive development.
But if a landowner goes by whatever zoning permits, which is their legal rights to do that, do you feel that in order to move forward with certain development, that if they require or ask for a variance here and there, which are often small ones, you feel that should be a reason to make it difficult for the developer?
Well, I don't know. It's not a question of making it difficult or easy. You know, I mean, we have laws. Because first of all, the zoning needs to be changed. The zoning, you know, over the last 10 years, the zoning has gotten out of control. And, you know, originally I thought it was, you know, a situation of error by omission, but, you know, looking back now to the mid teens, you know, it was intentional. These overlay districts and some of the zoning is just crippling us. So we have laws regarding what can and cannot be developed. They relate to safety, they relate to environmental concerns, you know, runoff, geotechnical. It's up. So if somebody wants to develop a piece of property, just live within all the laws. And if that's not technically feasible or economically feasible, then move on. You know, some of this land has been, you know, I think the last ice age ended about 20,000 years ago. Some of this land has been either wilderness or farmland for 20,000 years. So I see no urgency to change that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wall?
I'll pick up on that, but I'll just be a little more specific. So you're correct. 2015, the BOC adopted the innovation overlay districts and changed zoning on several large properties, 4 large properties, which equals 2,000 dwellings. 2 are being built and 2 are in the middle or late planning stages. Now we have all this land. We're updating the comp plan. We're going to change zoning. Would you advocate that for all the land, like the 1,000 acres in the northeast quadrant, would you apply overlay districts on that land, or would you do it selectively or not do it at all?
Well, I guess, I mean, you know, I participated in a lot of these comp plan meetings and exercises, and I really, quite frankly, don't have a lot of confidence that anything useful or workable is going to come out of it. But in the event that something did, and we identified that there's some new sector that's in everybody's best interest to be developed, you know, when we were putting those little, when we were playing that game of Risk with those little icons on the map, you know, I think my team ended up with a new, you know, sub-city center out on the border with North Whitehall and with Whitehall. You know, so that's, I mean, that's just one example. If that's the direction that we want to go, and there's a, you know, a compelling reason, then I think we should evaluate that situation. But I think in general, we need to throttle back on zoning and in fact, change some zoning.
Okay, so let me pick up on the opposite direction. Township has 0 agricultural farmland reserve and no agricultural zoning. As part of the zoning changes, would you advocate that obviously we have to work with property owners, but that we can work with property owners to get agricultural zoning into the township?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Again, specific follow-up on the previous question. what criteria would you use to approve or deny a developer request for a waiver from the township salary, in particular, those that would have an impact on public safety?
I would say that in the absence of some serious, unique circumstances, those should be denied.
Okay. Fine,
You little over a minute and a half.
wow. Okay. Statutory requirement that audits be submitted every year. We have 10 years of outstanding audits. They are being done successfully now. What would you do to ensure that the ones in progress are completed and that future audits are done on schedule?
Well, I have to say, I'm not exactly up to speed on who is responsible for conducting the audit. But one of the things in general, I've always believed in all my companies, everybody that's worked for me has always had some kind of an incentive compensation plan where there were defined objectives for each term. And then there was a bonus that was paid out based on successfully completing those particular objectives. So I mean, it sounds like it's a function of this township manager. So I would put that into the township manager's incentive, or part of the township manager's, that's incentivized to get those done and put a schedule in place. And, if he or she hits the schedule, good. If not, then they, lose out on that particular aspect of their compensation. I found it to be an extremely effective tool to get people to do what you expect them to do.
All right. Thank you. I must be done.
You only have 2 seconds left.
Commissioner Kelly?
Thank you. You noted in your interest letter wanting to increase transparency in local government. Can you explain a few steps that you might suggest or would want to see moving forward to involve the residents more in the decision-making processes? How would we be more inclusive and more transparent in that department?
Well, I think moving forward, everything should be provided on a video conference that people can log in and watch, even if after meetings return to the old, in-person format. We should broadcast everything. I mean, it's, the cost is trivial to do that. Now, the other aspect of that is, we have representative government. So if we have the right representatives in place, people don't have to spend half their evening tuning into these myriad of meetings. They can rely on the confidence that the people representing them are going to make the right decision. I mean, I never went to a board of commissioners meeting in my life until 4 years ago, when I found out that things were going, seriously not in the right direction. But if we have the right people in place, the last thing I need to do is listen to all these meetings as a citizen. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much. As a follow-up to your answer about the comprehensive plans meetings that you had attended from a citizen's perspective, I'm interested when you stated, looks like there's a city going to go up in the northern part. Would you have any suggestions if you were given this position to make a change to that process of how this is being done to make it more inclusive, to get resident feedback?
Well, there's only so much you can do to get people involved. And so, I mean, I think they made a good effort with some of those meetings. The problem is that there was, it's not obvious who's driving the bus for that whole thing. And they started with a set of assumptions that I think were completely unrealistic. And so then, as a result, if you've had garbage coming in, you're going to get the good old adage of garbage coming out. No, I think that, the people on the staff who are running that, their profession is development. So they're always going to be of the mindset that development is good. But if there were no development, they would have no job. So I think, it wouldn't hurt to involve some other people that don't have that kind of attachment to development to lead the initiative also.
You mean in tandem?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other question? Again, reviewing your life's work and your career, is there one thing that you would point to as an accomplishment or something that you even learned over the years of your career that you would say would set you apart from our other applicants that you could bring to this role as commissioner?
Well, I think you have a lot of very highly qualified applicants. I do have experience in being disciplined with finances. And like I said, sometimes you just have to say no with a smile. And, you know, I mean, you might end up saying no a lot. And I have no problem saying no.
Thank you very much.
All right. So Tom, I think Commissioner Kelly asked this question, but you answered it more for like when in maybe your history elsewhere, but what have you done here in South Whitehall for community involvement or experiences right here?
In the township, nothing.
Okay. If you were chosen for the appointed position, which is, I think somebody might have mentioned, it's a small period of time. It's a 7-month period. But, you know, obviously the goal is to have accomplishments, get things done. What type of legacy would you like to leave behind? How would you like people to remember you?
I would like to be remembered as having increased the transparency of our township government.
All right. Great, thank you. Commissioner Sutton?
Tom, I'll go back to the comprehensive zoning plan that we're working on, just to get your feedback as to, first, do you think that the way that we are approaching it, just like you mentioned with those little stickers and coming up to the public and hiring the professional people to draw the map for us and give us all kinds of suggestions, you think that was the wrong way, or do you feel that there might be another way of doing it that is maybe better?
Well, I think that you know, there's that old adage that a horse is a camel is a horse that was designed by committee. And so, you know, if you get too many people involved in something, then you just end up with, you know, a cyclical thing that never results in a result. But I think the efforts that have been made to include as many people as possible have been good, but the assumptions that went into it are either faulty or unrealistic. And so as a result, the output, whatever it is going to be, you know, of little practical value.
So how would you suggest to move forward with a comprehensive plan?
Well, you know, I think it's something that the board is going to have to ultimately crystallize into a written document and approve.
So you feel it's the decision of the board to draw the map?
Yeah, I mean, the board is represents the interests of the township constituents. So yeah, who would be better qualified to do it than us people?
Lastly, just the last question, Tom. I believe, do you live in the township on a regular basis, or do you? I believe you have another residence maybe in California. How often how do you juggle your time?
Oh, well, it depends on priority of what's happening where. I can, you know, over the last 10 or 15 years, I've been probably 65% in South Whitehall and 35% elsewhere. I also have a fair amount of business travel, which that 35%, which is included in that 35%. But it's easy enough to keep a finger on the pulse, and you know, I have no problem making time to attend meetings and workshops and information gathering sessions. And, you know, if somebody has a, you know, a particular event that they want some commissioner to speak at, I'm happy to do that, you know, community outreach. My schedule is pretty much up in the air, you know, so there's no hard limitation.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Tom, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. So we have some time at the end now for you to ask any questions you might have of us.
Okay, well, the one thing that's, you know, been going through my mind is, what, you know, for this particular, board vacancy, you know, you had an announcement that went in various media, you had it on the township website. You allowed people time to submit their letters of interest, then you're interviewing everyone. When Mark Pinsley resigned, why did that same process not happen?
It's the pleasure of the board, and the timing of that was slightly different. So it was the pleasure of that particular board. There's no set rules in how you have to go through the process for appointment.
Okay, so you're saying because.
It was the pleasure of the board.
Okay, right. Well, I think this is a much better process. Let me go on record with that.
Very good.
And I think everyone in the township would agree with that.
Anything else, Tom?
No.
All right. Well, thank you for being here with us today. We really do appreciate it. We're going to be gathering up all of our information from all of our interviews and getting back to all of the candidates once a decision or once we are ready to approach the public with a recommendation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for taking the time to meet. And
You
for
are so
accommodating my
welcome.
travel schedule.
You're so welcome. Have a great day today.
Thank you. You too.
Enjoy your weekend.
You do the same. Thank you.